This is an interview with Cash for Life winner Thea Faulds.
Are you listening?
So this is an interview with Cash for Life winner Thea Faulds. She won $1,000 per week for life. My name is Timothy Schultz. In 1999, I actually won the lottery before going back to college to study journalism and broadcast news. I'm now combining my experience with my desire to meet and interview other fascinating people. Some of these people happen to be other lottery winners, and Thea Faulds is one of those winners. In this interview, we got to discuss what it was like to win this lottery jackpot and how it changed her life. It's absolutely fascinating. She also shares her thoughts on manifestation, as well as her work with horror movie legend George Romero and what it was like to create the first ever zombie walk in Toronto. You're going to want to listen to the end of the interview where she even shares her thoughts on intuition and the lottery. It's a fascinating interview. Without further ado, let's get to it now. Here is my podcast interview with instant Cash for Life winner Thea Faulds. So I'm here with Thea Faulds, who won $1,000 per week for life from the lottery in Canada, from a lottery up there. But Thea, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to meet you today. Your story is incredible. So you won $1,000 per week for life in 2017. There's so many questions I have today about the win and how it's changed your life. And first of all, the day that you won, can you walk me through the day? I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, I definitely can. Now, just so you know, I'm not a big lottery player. Like, I don't buy tickets every week. And it was a really hot day, July 9th, 2017. And the strange thing was that I had been to Shoppers Drug Mart the day before and picked up supplies, and I had forgot one thing. I was having such a beautiful day. It was so nice outside. I didn't want to leave my house. We actually have a pool. We're just having such a great day, but I was like, I have to go and pick this up. Also, the strange thing is this girl had given me a dress the week before, and it was like a vintagey kind of blue dress, and I had no shoes to go with it. So I thought, I want to show her how much I love this dress, and I worked with her. So I want to just go to Claire's and buy a cheap pair of shoes that go with this dress so I can wear it on Monday, and she can see that I really appreciate it. And so we went to Claire's, and then there was like a Shoppers Drug Mart right there. So I just decided to pop in and buy what I missed the day before. And when I checked out, the woman in front of me bought a ticket, like a Cash for Life ticket. So I was like, oh, I should buy a Cash for Life ticket. And then, so I put that on my bill. And then we got in the car, and I had already bought my shoes, and we were heading home. And I started scratching the ticket, and I just see life. And then I scratch again, I see life. And then I scratch again, and I see life. And I'm like, oh, I'm with my husband, by the way. He was driving. And I said, Adam, I think I just won Cash for Life. And he just looked shocked at me. I'm like, can you pull over and look at this? Because I just didn't believe it. And it's the middle of summer. We have all our windows open. We're just like, he says, okay. So we pull over, and he looks at it. He goes, yes, you won Cash for Life. So gives it back, the ticket back to me. He goes, put that in your purse. I put it in my purse, like zipped up my purse. And then he does all the windows up, locks all the doors, and drives home so slowly. Like, he's like, I'm going to get us home safe. So, because I don't know, we were so scared something was going to happen to that ticket.
Wow. Were you a little nervous?
I was so nervous. I didn't know, like, I was kind of like, this is a joke. There's no way this can be happening. Yeah, I was just nervous because it was also a weekend, so I couldn't call the lottery, like, till everything was open again. Well, I called the lotto, and they said to check your ticket, you have to go into a store and check it, a lottery center. You know, that night we didn't sleep. We just kind of like put it in like a safe lockbox. And we just kind of sat there, and then we're like, for real. And then the next morning, I went to a grocery store, and they checked the ticket, and instead of the usual, there's like this little song that goes, it's like a different song, like a song I've never heard before, all these bells and whistles, and like, I wanted to keep this really on the down low, and the whole grocery store was like looking up, and people were coming up being like, I was with my mom, there's guys coming up going, is she single? Like, it was pretty funny. Anyways, everyone's like so excited, and the woman that's cashing me out is so excited. It stalls the machine, so she had to call into the lotto office. So then they made an appointment for me, but it wasn't till the following day. So again, I'm on like pins and needles, just being like, did I really? Even though the bells and whistles had gone off. And
what were you feeling between the time of hearing the jingle inside the song inside of the store and the time when you had to turn in, the hours that took? I mean, was your heart racing? What was going through your mind? You know what?
I just had like a giant grin on my face. I think the whole day I had to go to work, and I couldn't tell anyone. And I was just, just be normal. Mind you, I was wearing the dress, and I had the shoes, and I'm just like, thank you so much for getting me this dress. I love it so much, because it was like part of the story of, it was like somebody's kindness was the reason that I bought this ticket, and I can't ever forget that. So
how did that person react when they found out that you won Cash for Life?
Oh, she was so excited for me. She was like thrilled, like beyond thrilled. And she actually runs like a little like antique booth at a fair during the summer. And I try and go and support her. I buy tons of stuff off her, and we're still friends. So.
Oh my gosh. And so when you when you turned in the ticket and it did make that song, did people around you understand what you had won, or did they just know that you had won something big?
No, they knew, because the woman behind the counter was like, she just won Cash for Life. And everyone here knows what that is. I mean, it's like the biggest, like, I think they have the most commercials for Cash for Life. I think that's the lottery to win. But that's also a reason, like, I thought I was going to win that one, because I would always see it all the time. And I actually knew a friend whose mother had won that lottery before. So in my mind, it was always a possibility. And I think for a lot of people here, they see those commercials a lot, and they just, everyone knew what it was.
So you believed that it was possible before it happened?
Oh, yeah. And I totally knew that was the lotto I was going to win if I won any lottery.
And just to clarify for everyone watching or listening, this is a scratch ticket game.
Yeah, it was a scratch ticket.
Wow. When you turned in the ticket, what is the process like in Toronto or in Hamilton around there to turn in a ticket worth, quite a bit of money if you win the lottery?
Well, some advice is always don't forget to keep your receipt, because they're going to want to see your receipt and make sure you bought it. There's basically one lottery center, and it's in Toronto for Ontario. So some people, they have to fly into Toronto if they win over a certain amount of money. Luckily, I'm only like a GO train ride to Toronto. I went in there, and I waited hours. I had to have an interview, because they want to make sure it's actually you who won, and they want to make sure there's no fraud, but you have to show them the receipt. There was honestly somebody that won a really big, like, Mega Million jackpot on the same day. So most of the attention press was going to them. So I had to wait for them to go through the press office and all that, and then I had to go to the press, because I'm not sure what it's like in the US, but in Canada, we cannot keep our story private.
That wasn't an option for you.
Yeah, so I had to talk to the, I guess, people that are in charge of that. So, it was a really long day, but then at the end, they give you a check hold you over for like $10,000, which I'd never seen a check for $10,000 in my whole life. And then they were like, will this be okay to hold you over till it goes through? And then it just is $1,000 a week in my account every Tuesday.
Wow, that is incredible. Well, congratulations again. So the process when you were waiting to turn in the ticket, you're waiting there for hours. I mean, was that a little nerve-wracking or?
It was. I thought, they were going to be like, we've looked and we've decided this is a fake ticket and we cannot give it to you. And I also thought in my head, I was trying to calculate things because there was an offer to either take cash for life or to take 600 and something thousand. And I had heard, nobody really tells you these things, that cash for life was actually only 25 years. So I was trying to figure it out. I was like, it's really hard to think. I only have this day to make this decision. But it ends up, it is for my life. I get $1,000. So maybe if I was older, I might have taken the payout. But because of my age, I thought, oh, this is a great deal. My family lives to really old. I'm just
Yeah, so better to have it be for life than if you're one of those people that lives to be 100.
Yeah, and then I get paranoid. I'm like, will they be like, we ran out of money?
Oh, hopefully not.
I'm sure they won't.
No. I've interviewed a couple people that have won different lottery prizes in Canada, and they weren't taxed. Was that the case for you? Were there any taxes? Because in the United States, the taxes on lottery winnings are pretty substantial. But how was that for you?
I've heard that. And actually, it's different here. They don't tax you. And with mine, because it's a gratuity, what happens is the insurance company buys the contract off the lottery. They pay the highest tax on my winnings. So what happens in March or April is I also get a huge tax return. And then the strangest thing is if I work, that money comes from my tax return. They take it off my tax return. So I basically am working for free. So it's basically forced me not to work. And then if I take jobs, it's only because I really love them. So it's actually been great.
So you mentioned that you thought that you might win someday before it happened. I ask this of most people that I interview who have won money. I had a dream about it before it happened that was very vivid, that convinced me it's going to happen. I've met other people that have had experiences prior to winning that led them to believe for one reason or another that they were going to win, and other people that are really into manifestation and the law of attraction and that sort of thing, where people have won hundreds of millions of dollars that believe in that. And then there are other people, of course, that think it's all just coincidence. But, for you, I read that you saw a shooting star, and then, the stars aligned because you won that very same night. But can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I do believe a lot in manifesting. I've had a certain sense that the universe was always going to take care of me. Now, I didn't grow up with money and always had a lot of jobs, but I always felt like the universe was going to take care of me. And when I would say I kind of have lived a charmed life, and I've had feelings about things before. So when I was young, I won a gift certificate. I was in Girl Guides, and you went door to door and you sold tickets, and the prize was you'd win a gift certificate for $500 for a grocery store. So at the end, they're like, do you want to keep the last ticket, or do you want the money that you can sell it and keep the $2 from it to buy a chocolate bar or whatever? And I was like, I knew I was going to win. So I put my name in it and I won. So it's a certain hunch. It's strange. It's not always I really want that, so I need it. It's just I know. And so with this was a strange time for me because I wasn't in the best point of my life, and I've done a lot of I've read The Secret. I've done a lot of gratitude work. It was a full moon. I always sit out. I light a candle to the full moon and I think about what I'm grateful for. And I actually was having like the most beautiful night the night before. Like my husband and I were staying outside. We're listening to old records and I'd just done all my full moon ritual, as I call it. And we're sitting outside and I see a shooting star and I look over and I say, Adam, I just saw a shooting star. And he's like, what do you want? What do you wish for? And I looked around and I said, I have everything I could ever want. I can't even think of anything I want right now. And then he was like, okay. So, and then the next day I won the money. It was like almost like I had just kind of become comfortable and enjoyed my life as it was. And then the universe was like, here you go. Mind you, that caused another kind of shake-up. But
wow. That's amazing. Were you surprised when you won?
I was still in shock because then this is the real world. This is not my fantasy world. Ideas click in, and so I was in shock for days. I must have been in shock for like weeks, honestly. I think I'm still a little in shock. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have to go to work today, and I can just do music or whatever I feel like doing, and it just blows me away. Like I'm very lucky. That week too, I had found a monarch that was like, it was the end of its days and it was in the middle of the road and I saved it from getting hit by a car and I put it in a little cage and I gave it milkweed and I kept it for a week and then I tried to put it out and it would like just crawl on my hand and then it would just kind of flitter off of it and then it wouldn't leave. It would like come back to its little like wicker cage I had made it. And the funny thing is I went to the garden center and I'm like, what do I feed a butterfly? And they gave me some milkweed and this other butterfly weed and stuff. And after I won the lottery, I went, and this is the funny thing, when I was in there buying stuff for this butterfly, I said, there was this garden statue I really liked. I said, if I win the lottery, and I'm not one to say that all the time, I said, if I win the lottery, I'd buy that statue because it's like $300 for a garden statue. And then I won the lottery. And then I came back and she's like, oh my gosh, I saw you in the news. And she was so happy for me. Anyways, the butterfly didn't make it. But I felt like there was a strong sign at that time. I felt like really like one with nature and the universe. And I was just really, really loving life at that time. So.
That's really interesting. And a lot of people talk about, people that are into manifestation and that sort of thing talk about how being in the moment is important.
Definitely that's what it is, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So the woman who was selling the statue, you mentioned that she saw you on the news. What was that like receiving that publicity? The 15 minutes, it could be more than 15 minutes, it could be a lifetime, but the lottery fame, how did that feel and what was that like?
That was really strange. Like they put an article in the paper and that day I went to work and it said in there where I work and that I was going to keep working there. And that day I went to work and I'm like, why are all these people coming in? Like I worked in an art gallery, but it was like it's like a morning on a Wednesday or Thursday and people are coming in and just looking around, but they kept looking at me like no one was talking to me. Like they just wanted to look at the person. They wanted to ogle the person that won the lottery, I guess. So it was very surreal. It was like a Twilight Zone where everyone's looking at me. But no one really talked to me or asked me questions. And maybe that's a Canadian thing. I think more in the US, like what I find when I go to the United States is that because I have a lot of tattoos and that sort of thing, people will come up and ask me about my tattoo. But here it's kind of more conservative, I find. So I think they just were looking at me, and some people came and they wanted to like rub my shoulder for good luck or like whatever.
I completely empathize with that. Yeah, I mean, I had people that were, they're like, oh, can you touch me for good luck? And, there are a lot of people, it's, the United States might be a little bit different, but there were, I couldn't go to a grocery store without people knowing, or, knowing my story at least. So it was definitely a foreign feeling at the time.
I still get it too, because I did an interview just for the music I do a couple weeks ago, and the person doing the interview was like, well, did you win the lottery? Like, I wasn't sure if you're the same person, but yeah, I get it all the time. So.
And what do you do with music?
So I always wanted to do music, but I always had like 2 or 3 jobs just trying to survive here. And I was in a band. And I was already playing theremin, but it takes like hours and hours to learn the theremin. It's like one of the hardest instruments to learn. When I did eventually end up leaving my job, I put more hours into that. I started taking piano classes. I started a band. So that's what I've been doing, and it's great. I've been doing more writing and traveling and all the things I want to do. So. Yeah.
So how would you say that the in that aspect that the lottery has changed your life? Because I read that this is when you initially won. I read some press reports that said that you were, you're really into script writing scripts, and you were interested in traveling, and you wanted to help your mother, I believe. But have you done those things, any of those things, all of those things? How has it changed your life?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So I always kind of like go on road trips to the States, but now it's been bigger trips. So my husband, we went to Romania and Prague, which was like a dream vacation. And we had a private tour through the Carpathian Mountains, and we went to all the spots from Dracula. And then we went to Prague, and I got to see the Bone Church, which is on my wish list. We went to Costa Rica. We went to the jungle and stayed in one of those like jungle tree houses. I went to Hawaii to visit a friend that flies helicopters there. I haven't seen her since I was a kid. I went to Mexico with my mom, and we actually both had surf lessons. So that was really fun.
No, it sounds like it. And I see those horror movie posters behind you, which are awesome. I was so excited because I know you're a fellow horror movie lover. For people that don't know, you actually founded the Toronto Zombie Walk in 2003, I believe. But it was yeah. So it was the first. I was reading this. There was the first zombie walk ever. So it sort of started this cultural phenomena. Before any major city had these zombie walks, because now they're all over the world. You're the first person that started it with just a handful of friends. Is that correct? And can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I actually moved here from BC. So when I was younger, like a teenager, my friends and I used to love dressing up. So we'd make little films. We'd dress up like zombies and or vampires and make little films all the time. The high school would just let us take out the video camera for the weekend, and we'd just make these kooky films, or else we'd just dress up, like just for fun. So then I moved to Toronto to go to university, and I went into Ryerson for media arts, which I focused on film. I met all these people that loved horror, but nobody wanted to dress up. They're like, that is weird. This is kind of like before the fan culture thing became really big. So I couldn't find anyone that kind of wanted to do this with me. So I decided, oh, well, how about I get a group of zombies together and we walk the streets of Toronto and, you know, freak out the neighborhoods. And no one wanted to do it. So I just made a flyer and I put it in all the video stores, and I worked at the university at the time. So I put it at the university and all over Queen Street, and 7 people, I think, came to the first one. And then it was really fun. We went from there's an area in the east of Toronto that has 2 cemeteries that are in between, kind of like this old Irish neighborhood. So we went from one cemetery and then we kind of stumbled along through the streets to the other cemetery. So that was our run. And then one of the women that had been on the first walk moved to Vancouver, and she started one there, and her first walk got 200 people. So my second one only got like 12, I think, or something. And then it started in San Francisco, like from Vancouver, it kind of spread to San Francisco. And then once it became huge in the States, it became pretty big up here too. And then it got to the point, it was like 10 to 15,000 people. We had to close down the streets in Toronto. We were walking down the middle of Yonge Street, which is the giant, huge downtown street in Toronto. And it was pretty epic.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like it. That's so thousands of zombies marching at once.
It was amazing. It's like the creativity people brought was like amazing. Like the costumes every year would be like out of this world.
That's incredible. This may or may not be true, but I read that the zombie walk at some point, you know, you hosted thousands and thousands of people, but then at some point it for one year it ran out of funds, and then a year or two later is when you won the lottery. Is that right?
Yeah. It was, I'm trying to remember the year of the last one, but it was very sad. I had to let it go, but I was working and then trying to do this on the side, which was like a full-time job without pay. And all year I raised money. That's why I couldn't do music or film or any of the other things I love to do, because I would raise money for this walk to happen. So one year we got Ontario funding, and then the next year we didn't get it. And that year almost killed me. The city made me hire a parade manager. Like I couldn't continue without it. They made me pay to close down all the streets. They made me pay to reroute all the streetcars and the signs to do that. So the whole thing cost me like $40,000. So, and then you have companies that they'd want to sponsor, but they wouldn't want to pay the money, but then they buy an advertisement on Yonge Street where the zombies are walking by it. So it was like, no, just help us out. And I'm not a seller. I'll admit it. Like, obviously I'm not, a marketer, and I also couldn't find anyone who was really passionate about it like I was to market it. Because we could have maybe made some money, and not off the zombies. I always wanted it to be a free event. I wanted it to be for families. I wanted it to be anyone could come. If you didn't have a costume, we'd have a blood booth for you. And we'd have blood sponsored. So all the Halloween kind of companies were really great to me, and they'd supply tons of blood and stuff. You could get decked out there because I want it to be equal opportunity for every zombie. We all get to walk together, because that's what zombies are about. Like, they're not, everyone walks together. You'll see a lawyer zombie and like a punk zombie all so I just wanted to have this feeling. I never wanted to charge the zombies, which was kind of a detriment to the event. And I burnt out really bad. So I let it go. It was really hard. And then, a few years later, I won. When I said, okay, that's it, I won the lottery. So
I could talk about horror movies all day with you, but I know a lot of people watching and listening are interested in the lottery thing. So I want to jump back to that real quickly. Do you have any advice for anyone else that wins $1,000 per week for life?
My advice is obviously enjoy yourself. I found that I got like really, actually, after I won was the first time in my life I've ever felt fear, like fear to die. I've never had that. Like that's not part of my character. I'm kind of like a daredevil. I'll do anything. Like I never had that. And then I won the lottery. I was like, for some reason, I just started getting really paranoid about everything. So if anyone's going through that kind of like where it's shaking up your world so much that you're not standing on the same ground that you were before you won, know that you're going to get yourself back. Because I feel like I'm like, if you know you're still going to be yourself. Because like I remember breaking down a couple times thinking I'm never going to be myself again because everything's changed. I'm not who I am through work. I mean, I think that's a big one.
Oh, identity.
Yes, because what I realize is people come up to you all the time and they're like, what do you do? They kind of classify you under the job you have. And I felt that after I won the lottery, I felt like a trust fund baby. Like I don't have a job and I felt kind of lesser than other people. And I felt like people kind of looked down because I wasn't working. But then I learned that wasn't my true identity anyways, because I had always worked so much that I put my identity in what I do, like running the Toronto Zombie Walk, working in an art gallery, working in a record store. But now I'm just me, which is actually the most fantastic job in the whole world.
Yeah, I completely empathize with that. Way back in the day, it took me a little while to be able to figure out what to do with my life, and some people anyway did look at me a little differently. And then people, what do you say when someone asks, what do you do? And you're not used to fielding that question. I don't know about you, but it was hard for me to just, for strangers at least, for just random people, and you're not gonna say, oh, well, I won the lottery, so now I'm doing this or that. I mean, that's not who you are anyway.
Right. Like it doesn't define who you are, but it does give you the freedom to be yourself totally. Like, so now I even had a problem like saying I'm a musician. Like, I think a couple friends said to me like, Taya, you can say you're a musician. Like, it's fine because you've been playing, even though you're not a classically trained pianist, you can say that. It's fine, right? So
yeah,
that's been hard because you don't really fit in any of the regular categories. So
yeah, it's a pretty unique situation. Have people treated you differently?
yeah, definitely in the arts community, because I was working in an arts community and there is a lack of funding in the arts. So I don't blame people for being a little mad that somebody just comes in and wins and they can do whatever art they want or what. I don't know. But honestly, most people have been great. Like, I was surprised. It was almost like dying and then seeing people talk at your memorial. The comments of people that knew me, like, I am almost in tears when I think about them, because it was like, Taya's such a good person. She deserves this. Like, I did a lot of rescue work and that sort of thing as well on the side. So it was like, what people said were some of the nicest things I've ever heard in my whole life. So it negates anything a few people who were obviously upset and jealous that I wish they could win too. I honestly do. I think everyone should. I actually think there should be a universal income that should be around my salary for everyone. But all the nice things just kind of took away any of the negativity. I mean, interestingly enough, some people did come into my life at that point, but I don't really think it was the lottery. I think it was just I finally had time for more people. Like, I had time to open up my social sphere because I was always working so much before.
So you're obviously, even maybe financially, you may or may not be retired, but you're not. You're actually working and pursuing your passions.
I'm pretty much retired. I volunteer, so it's great. I volunteer at Urban Wildlife Care here, and it's like they take care of baby skunks and baby possums and squirrels and that have lost their parents due to like being hit by cars or whatever. And for me, just it is work, right? Like you might not get paid in money, but you definitely get paid when you get to release an animal. Like, I got to release my first possum this summer, and it was amazing. Like, they always look back, they always recognize it. They're like, "Where am I?" And then they're like, "Thank you." It's almost like they say thank you, and then they leave. And so it's like I have jobs, but I get paid in different ways. And doing music is, like, honestly so fulfilling. But it is like a job. Like, you have to stay on it. You have to practice every day. You have to dedicate the time. You have to do recordings. You have to learn new equipment. You have to troubleshoot all the time. So, yeah, these are my passions, but it's been awesome.
Do you think that money brings happiness?
No, definitely not. Because, like, I remember, too, like, I just felt out of sorts the first week I won, and then I think I snapped at somebody and they were like, "Oh, you're set for life now." And I was like, there's other things besides money. Because it was like, I think there's a lot more, and it's like about being comfortable in your skin and where you are and enjoying life and being one with nature. And I don't know. That's just me. So some people hate nature. So.
Oh. Well, I love nature, so thank you very much.
What's your favorite horror movie?
Well,
I know. I hate
it's a tough question, but
asking the question.
My favorite horror movies probably are The Exorcist and The Shining, but they're so mainstream. You know, if you go to horror film festivals, you know that most of the movies are pretty indie. So I love indie horror movies, but those are two of my favorites, even though they're so mainstream.
Yeah, that's okay. Because my favorite is like Night of the Living Dead, which is everyone knows. It's like everyone's seen it. Although I like a lot of obscure horror movies, you can have a popular favorite.
Yeah, Night of the Living Dead fits with creating the zombies for the zombie walk.
Well, this was another thing, is I actually met Romero many times, and he supported the zombie walk. I cannot find it anywhere, but he did a video about the zombie walk and how much he loved it. And when he became a Canadian citizen, we actually did a special zombie walk for George Romero. And we made like a trophy with a severed hand, and I was holding like the CN Tower, and we gave that to him. And I've always had this connection with George Romero. He got me I've been an extra in one of his films.
Which one?
Survival of the Dead. I'm the red-haired, I look like a waitress zombie. So I'm on the dock, but you only see me for a second. You just can't blink and you see me. And then I'm on, anyways, we did a little promo with George Romero. And we actually worked with him, and he's just always been really good to me. But the thing was, after the lottery, he died like a week and a half later.
Oh, wow.
And then he but they only put out my story like 2 days after he died. So people were like, oh, well, it was Romero's gift to you. And I'm like, I wish it probably wasn't, but it is a strange coincidence that happened at that time when I lost that person that was kind of a horror father figure to me. So,
yeah. And for the people watching this, is and was one of the most renowned horror directors and filmmakers of all time.
He was so kind. He was like kind to all his fans, and he was so nice. Like, he was just an outstanding guy for sure.
I do want to ask you, do you have any advice there are people here some people in Canada that play Cash for Life, but people from all over the world that are playing the lottery, hoping to win. Do you have any advice for them? What would you tell someone that's hoping to win the lottery?
I would say always listen to your gut, for sure. If your gut says to do something, it's not your head though, because your brain will try and trick you and tell you, you're going to win this or whatever. But if you feel it in your gut and you're like, I just got to go now and get something, that's how I've always had my hunches that have been correct. So.
So did you feel it in your gut when you played that day?
The gut instinct told me to go to get these shoes at Claire's. And that led me to going to that Shoppers because I had forgotten to buy something the day before. Your gut is not always going to tell you go buy a lottery ticket. It's going to tell you to go to a certain location. And then if you have a hunch while you're there, go for it, right?
Yeah. Intuition seems to be very important if you're able to clue in on that, and you're able to do that with other aspects, like not just the lottery, but that's something that you do in your day-to-day life. You listen to your intuition and you find it to be true.
I do meditate like every day, and I think that really helps because it helps clear your mind. So anything that's going to come to you or you're going to receive, like, you have to have a clear head to be able to receive it. And you have to know it's not your brain just like endlessly talking to you. So to be able to pick up that kind of hunch and that gut feeling, you kind of have to be able to clear your mind with whatever. I mean, some people it's different. Some people, they do that through music, or some people like can do it through yoga or walking even, or like I personally like to sit and just meditate for like 15 minutes a day. That's all I do. But then I find like it just clears my head, puts me in a good spot, and I go with what comes up. Well,
I have a lot of respect for that. I mean, there's so many studies that show the benefits of meditation, and I have so much respect for it. If someone were to ask you why you won the lottery, what would you say?
I was meant to. Actually, that first time I saw that my friend's mom had won Cash for Life, I knew I just knew. It was, again, I talk about that punch in the gut. Like, when I saw that, like, when I heard that story, it just hit me. Like, I was like, oh. But it didn't mean I went and played every single week. Once in a while, it was once every 3 months I bought a ticket. If I'm ever drawn to an unusual location for something, or I end up somewhere strange, I'll buy a lottery ticket. Like, basically.
You have an amazing story. It's really incredible and inspiring, and I'm really into all this stuff, and I love your story. One more question here. I know we got to get going. One more question. If you are in a zombie apocalypse, what's the best way to survive?
Oh, I join the zombies. I'm totally on the side of the zombies. I'm getting bitten right away. Totally be a zombie.
I love it. Well, I am so unbelievably happy for you. Your story is amazing, and thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for including me in this.
So that was my interview with Thea Faulds. If you like this interview, go ahead and hit the like button and let me know in the comments, what did you think of this interview and what would you do if you won $1,000 per week for life? I love checking out your comments. Get notified when new interviews are released by hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon. If you want to support this podcast and get early access to new podcast interviews, I will put a link to the Patreon page below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support.